Thank you very much, House Chair, and my warm and sincere greetings to Honorable President Ramokgopa, Honorable Deputy President Paul Mashatile. I must say that 12 minutes can be a very, very, very long time when you don't know what to say. And I want to say the following to the previous speaker, that I think he'll be served exceptionally well by directing the arguments against the IEC to the Electoral Court. So I really want to pursue you, not to withdraw the case, but to pursue that case, and hopefully you'll be able to prevail. So on the occasion of the inaugural Lekgotla of the 7th administration, the President made an inspired decision to invite one of the most preeminent and prolific political economy scholars in the country, Mr. J.P. Landman. Mr. Landman delivered a compelling paper, and that paper is titled "From Crisis to Opportunity, a Path to Sustainable Growth." And that decision is inspired at two levels. The first one was it is important that we are able to invite outside parties who will be able to provide a critical analysis, a critique of the performance of the South African economy in this instant, and we are able to get better insights on how best to improve the situation going into the future. And what Mr. Landman did was to compute a longitudinal study of the South African economic performance over an extended period of time. And he was able to illustrate that that period is punctuated by a number of tectonic events. And these events include the Great Depression of 1929, the oil crisis of the 1970s, the financial crisis of 2008, and the most recent headwinds of COVID-19 of 2019, amongst the others. And he was able to illustrate that they were on a correct path, but there are things that requires our collective attention. And in his own independent computation, contrary to what has been shared before us here, was that we have returned to pre-COVID levels from a position of, if you had to use multiple matrices, including the issues around jobs, that we have been able to claw back those jobs, although we still have a lot to do for us to be able to address this situation. But it's also important because there has to be a greater appreciation that, unlike what has been deposited here by Dr. Hlope, he makes the point that the scholars of political science suggest that the government of national unity are only constructed to respond to an emergency or a crisis. I want to suggest to you that there is more contemporaneous studies that suggest that it's not only about emergency or crisis, but the possibility of collectively pursuing an opportunity that presents in the context of a geopolitical crisis. I am making this point because, as the good doctor will know, is that we've got both an intellectual and academic responsibility to surface alternatives and, if you like, counter views when we posit an argument. And in fact, what we have done amounts to, if you like, an intellectually and academically incompetent argument. And I'm saying that with the greatest of respect. So it's important that we are able to pull this together. And then the issue of the GNU. I must say that the African National Congress entered into this arrangement and it has not lost its character. We have always and remain of the following view in our characterization of the South African conflict, that is underpinned by three interrelated and antagonistic contradictions of race, class, and gender. And the resolution of this question gets to be articulated in the most substantive fashion in the crisp apex priorities of this 7th administration. And I want to say to Honorable Maimane that We are not all over the place. We simply identify the three priorities. I'll unpack those. As I confront what I refer to the Malema oxymoron. What do I mean by the Malema oxymoron? So, it is acceptable for the EFF to enter into an arrangement with the DA and other parties to displace the ANC in Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and Johannesburg. But when we do that, we get to be labeled. The oxymoron goes further. He makes the following point. He says that this is a sellout arrangement. And essentially what President Matamela Ramaphosa delivered yesterday was authored by the Oppenheimers. And then in the same argument, he says, but this is a repeat of what Matamela Ramaphosa has been saying all along. So this articulation really belongs to us. Is the originality of this. So that is the oxymoron I'm referring to. Let me go to the substantive issues. The first issue on inclusive growth and job creation. The President Ramaphosa makes the following point, that there is a need for us to beneficiate the minerals. Honorable Shivambo says that the geopolitical consideration should be factored in the speech. Of course, there's an undercurrent of that in his articulation. What do we know about the clean conversation about the just transition? We know that the Western industrialized North are likely going to introduce artificial barriers in the form of carbon border adjustment mechanisms. So it is important that for us to protect our industry, that the generation that support the production of these products that serves the Western and industrialized markets should come from cleaner forms of technology. And what do we know about the possibility of clean forms of technology? Is that we have to have an appreciation of the entire value chain. That there are minerals that constitute what I refer to as the battery economy. So this is cobalt, nickel, copper, rare earth elements, PGMs, to mention but a few. And a significant number of those are found here. And that's why on the back of an industrial policy, having concluded the cadastral system that Minister Mantashe is referring to, we are able to articulate in the most comprehensive and coherent manner what these opportunities present as we evolve towards the electric cars, the displacement of an internal combustion engine to be replaced by electric vehicles. South Africa's market is much bigger than that's the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but the possibilities goes beyond. And when you go to the issues around green hydrogen, the appreciation is even much better. The hard-to-abate sectors, we are sitting with those endowments, and South Africa is sitting pretty to exploit these opportunities going into the future. So that sits in that articulation of President Ramaphosa. Just a few months ago, we got to be accused that the kind of progress we are making, spectacular progress, in the resolution of the preeminent and existential question that was facing the South African economy, that of load shedding. We are accused as we're moving closer to the election, by all quarters, by the way, that this is an election gimmick, that in fact, after the elections, load shedding will come back. And in fact, the leader of the EFF, Honorable Malema, he was even prophetic. And he said on the 29th of May at 10, the lights will go off. We are 113 days today without load shedding. And when I was advised that respond to this question. When I looked deep, I said it doesn't warrant a response. But in fact, what it calls for is education. It's a very complex engineering question to understand. And I'm going to give myself time to be able to educate you so that there's a greater level of appreciation. But we also, on the issues of reducing poverty and tackling high cost of living, President Ramaphosa makes the point about expanding the flow of the social wage. When I'm talking about the social wage, I'm not only talking about transfers. The 340 SRD grant is the threshold of water and electricity that we give to the poor. And the zero rating, the expansion of the zero VAT rating of the basket of food. President Ramokgopa refers to that in his articulation. Surely, someone who defends and expands the social wage can't be a sellout. He's someone who's on the side of the poor and doing everything to ensure that we address this question. I want to say, as I move closer to conclusion, that we are going to protect also the interest of the poor to the extent that their wages and their disposable income is eroded by the exponential increases with regards to electricity tariffs. And it is at this point that we are going to super exploit our renewable endowments in the form of the sun and the wind speeds that are found in the Cape provinces. And in this way, we are able to green faster, cheaper, more affordable, and we are able to achieve universal access as we continue the agenda of reindustrializing the South African economy, as we articulate a comprehensive economic growth policy undergirded by an industrial policy and an energy policy, and will be coming out to articulate the integrated energy plan going into the country. And the last one is around building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. The turnaround, as an example, that we are seeing in Eskom, is not an act of miracle. It is a deliberate, calculated, orchestrated engineering effort to respond to an existential problem on the economic front by competent men and women of Eskom who are diligent. Chalmers Johnson, one of the most foremost scholars on the political economy of countries, when he studies the Asian tigers, he makes the point that what is common about those Asian tigers is that the state was never in retreat. The state led the developmental agenda and was able to aggregate all of society, including business, behind a common agenda. The second one he makes is a concentration of pockets of excellence, what we call SOEs, and that those are the major drivers. We're able to push back state capture at Eskom, and that's why the lights are on. It's because of the honest men and women. But that's not only restricted to the public sector. The private sector also has an obligation. And we can see the decimation, the devastation that has been visited on VBS. The poor who have spent all of their savings with the intention of retiring happy, their lives were destroyed by the greedy and those who don't have the interests of the poor at heart. As I conclude this, I want to say the following, drawing from the counsel of President Mandela. He has the following to say: difficulties break some men, but make others. No axe sharp enough to cut the soul of a man who keeps on trying, one armed with hope that he will rise even in the end. And I'm confident that with this GNU will deliver the results for our people. President O.R. Tambo makes the point. On the occasion of the burial of Gqirha, he says the future is bright, the end is glorious. The intervening period is dark and bitter, but finds glory in acts of struggle. The GNU will deliver us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.